On today's show, we're going to discuss some surprising findings from recent Upwork study on the impact of AI in the workplace. Stay tuned to find out. I'm Daniel.
I'm Matheus.
And this is the Human AI Experience. We'll be right back. So I came across this Upwork study and it was pretty interesting. Basically, they interviewed 2,500 people from US, UK, Australia, and Canada, from C-suite executives and full-time employees and freelancers. And the research revealed that 96% of C-suite leaders expect AI to boost productivity, because they have been brainwashed that by all the tech companies that this is the reality, right? But 77% of employees report that AI has actually increased their workload. So it seems that there's like a significant gap between expectations and reality.
Yeah, definitely. That's I think we are all feeling that, like the expectations are huge because the marketing of these companies are huge. They're selling as they're gonna change the world. I'm not saying that they're not gonna change. I think they will, but in the future, maybe a decade or more. Because it's still. So that's interesting. It's really interesting, like how the employees and how the employers are in totally different boxes, and that's interesting.
Yeah, it also sucks, right? Like for everybody that is like now all of a sudden have this increased expectation of something that you don't even understand, right?
Yeah.
And there's more to it. Like, so according to the study, right, AI tools are supposed to make work easier, but many employees find that these tools add to their tasks instead. So they're spending more time reviewing or moderating AI-generated content, learning how to use these new tools, and being asked to do more work as a direct result of AI. So they're basically risking a burnout. Yeah, so from 71% of these full-time employees, 65% are struggling with increasing productivity demands, and 1 out of 3 said that they might be quitting their job in the next 6 months due to burnout or being overworked.
That's concerning. That's really concerning. And but to be honest, like I feel that there's two sides. One side is like every time you implement a new tool, there's a learning curve. So people will invest more time to learn this tool until they get in a point that it becomes super productive. So I think we're still in this learning curve because we're still learning how to increase the productivity in our works, and how to use these tools to make the work easier and better and faster, So I do believe we are still like in this moment where we are, as you are showing right now, like people are in this point of burning out, but this curve needs to be transpassed, we need to pass through this point until we get in a point that we're going to be more productive.
Oh, definitely. And according to the research as well, half of these employees they just don't know how to achieve these productivity gains that their employers are expecting, right? Because it's not the reality. I mean, it's not gonna, I mean, like you mentioned before, what those companies are marketing is a maybe near to long future reality, not what you get now. So they need to adjust. They need to adjust their expectations. Maybe when the bubble bursts, people will come to the realization that the evolution of these tools will just take longer than expected. Right? It's not ready yet.
Yeah, I totally agree. And even though like ChatGPT, I always use ChatGPT as an example, which for me is funny, but for me is the best tool for now. And then I think the kind of work that it helps to be produced is really good and the results are good. But we still need the creation, we still need the review, and other stuff. So the tool is not ready, and the people are not ready to use the tool yet. So I feel that there's definitely adjustments necessary in this expectation and in the way that they are dealing with that, the employers especially.
And you can't expect people to, out of nowhere, start learning AI, right? You have to provide the tools, you have to have internal training. So this is something that the report mentions as well, that less than 26% of these leaders have implemented AI training in their workplace, and only 13% reported that they have a AI training strategy implemented as well. So, I mean, that's almost a little bit more than 10% of. So they're also not doing the heavy lifting that will, prepare their workforce for this new reality. So they need to be held accountable for this, for not investing in it, and just for demanding unrealistic
growth
expectations from their employees.
Yeah, I do agree, and then I feel that if they're not providing if they're not providing the tools and not providing training, how do they expect or like that's unrealistic, like that's so I think that we are in a scenario that people are putting too much trust or too much expectation in tools that are still under development. So if you see like the I think there's 5 levels of growth in the AI until it reaches the human level or something like that, and we are in the 3rd cycle. So we're in the halfway through. We're halfway through of something that will really change the reality that we are living right now. So for now, I think that's not working. Like this way is not working, at least.
Funny enough, there's like a section on freelancers, and apparently freelancers are doing fine. More or less half of them felt skilled at using AI, and over a third of them use AI tools regularly. So more than half of freelancers reported not struggling with productivity demands as much as full-time employees, basically.
It makes a lot of sense, actually.
Interesting.
It makes a lot of sense, because if you were running your own work, you will find tools, to make it easier. But if you are attached to a company, you have to set some boundaries, and even not only personal boundaries, but I mean like the company works in some rules. So you need to follow the rules, the regulations. So for example, all the documents that you're producing, they are confidential. Most of them are confidential, and they're only for internal use. So how can you put it in a machine or in a place that you don't know what they're gonna do with this information? So there's a lot of.
I hope that freelancers are also not adding those tools, those confidential information to public AI tools, but
yeah, I hope the same. But even though like I feel that it's easier for people that are working by their own, that they can move faster, and it's like a startup. They move fast because they have less boundaries, they have less they're less attached to a structure that needs to be fit in this market. And it's so I feel that that's the same way of freelancing against like someone that is employed in a company. You know what I mean? Like if you have ever as a freelancing, the consequences will be like you lose this job, and then you can continue. But if you make a really big mistake in a company, you'll be fired. So that's both scenarios that can happen.
Yeah, and when you're working on a company, you have processes, right? And then you have usually like a lot of task allocation. There's like time management, and so everything is kind of very streamlined. And then there's not that much wiggle room, let's say, for you to just incorporate another tool if you don't have the space to learn that tool, and also what are the AI internal rules as well. Maybe these companies are not even internally prepared to have AI tools widely spread inside the company. And also, if you want to prevent your confidential documents to be uploaded to these public AI companies, you also have to tell your employees not to do that. So it's not just training the tool, but it's creating internal process of how to handle AI. So
yeah, definitely. You cannot only say to people like use this tool, and then you figure out how to be more productive. Like people don't have that much time. In the companies, you usually have to reach some goals every month or every 6 months. So you need to be focused on that. And then how can you focus in a new tool if you? And people use the easy way. It's the human being thing. So we always go for where our knowledge is already consolidated. To do the things easier. So if you insert a new tool that is not completely clear that it's gonna enhance your productivity and it's gonna bring you like new advantages, you're not gonna use it. I like to compare like when people start using Revit, there was this learning curve, to learn Revit was so big and so that people were abandoning and like, oh, this tool took way more time to do the same thing I can do on CAD, The thing is that if you draw on CAD, you are drawing on 2D. And if you draw the same drawing on Revit, you are drawing something on 3D, So it will be easier for people to understand and for you to make adjustments in this 3D because everything is attached, So if you enhance the walls or if you enhance the size of some rooms, it automatically will change in the whole drawings, But if you do it on CAD, you do it everything manually. So if you change the size of a room, you change the size of the sections, the size of the facades. It will match it the whole thing. But then when you are drawing and you are submitting your work to the client, in the first submission, it might be almost the same time that you implemented both. But when you do revisions on it, Revit is way better. So because you can do it way more faster. So people don't get it that when they are implementing these tools, So they were like super afraid, like, no, I'm taking more time because I don't know how to use the tool, so I need to fix stuff that I never have done before, using CAD. So this battle, it took longer, There's still companies nowadays that they're not using Revit because they still think that CAD is more efficient,
Yeah, it's a tool that needs time to be mastered, right? And those tools have been around for 2 years, mostly. When ChatGPT came out, like 2 or 3 years ago?
2022.
No, 22?
Yeah,
22? Yeah, so that's nothing. Like it's very pretty much like in the early adoption phase. So with time, I think we'll reach some maturity, and then also the use cases I think will evolve, and then people will learn. But you also have to incentivize. If you are expecting your employees to be more productive, you also have to give them the right tools, the right training, and the amount of time necessary to master that. Then you can start expecting a bit more.
Of course, we're talking more about the large language models, but I feel that some companies, they are worried to work in their products to create small small bots, or even other types of AI, inside of their material. And then these companies, I think they're doing right, because then you were working in some internal processes, But if you simply give a tool that is ready and done by another company, and you just give to your employee and say like, be more productive with this tool, that's not the way it should be done, And I believe.
And then
sorry.
I was speaking to a friend of mine that works in a company, and then they recently switched from Slack to Microsoft Teams, and then that, it pissed off a lot of employees internally, because Now you have to adjust to all the limitations that Microsoft Teams have compared to Slack, which is, I've used Slack and I really like it. I think it's a pretty efficient tool. So that will have productivity, it will impact productivity during a period of time where these people will have to adapt to this new tool. And I hope the management is actually taking that into account, especially if it's like a company-wide transition, right? So you need to take that into consideration. You just cannot shovel a tool out of people's throat and expect them to just accept, and from one day to the other we're just producing 50% more. That's not how it works.
Yeah, definitely. I think every change it takes a little bit of time, and then people need to adapt. And this change from Slack to Teams is a big thing, because they're totally different tools. They have the same purpose, but they are used in so many ways. Like in Teams, you have groups, and it's totally different. I'm not gonna make an example because it's, but it's an interesting story. Like.
Yeah, and then just to bring it back a little bit to the freelancing or freelancers, I think it's kind of obvious that if you work by yourself and you have to do, you're a solo entrepreneur, let's say, and you have to do all the tasks yourself, that you desperately need, try to find ways to get all the automation of the boring task out of the way, so you can focus on doing what you like to do, right? So it's not a surprise to me that a lot of freelancers are thriving with these tools, and maybe perhaps that might be the first group of heavy users of these tools will be solopreneurs or creatives that have their own business and so on.
Yeah, I feel that makes a lot of sense, and even though, as we mentioned, like because these people, they need to be innovative, as you said, like for them it's better for them to be more productive, So if they learn fast another tool, and then they can apply it, and they know all the processes that are happening in the company, so it's easy for you to move faster, because then you know that, okay, maybe if I use this tool to do that activity, then you increase my productivity in the end. But in bigger companies, sometimes you don't know the whole processes. You're doing part of it, so how can you? Of course, you can apply for the processes that you are doing, but sometimes it depends on other people. We were part of the team, so I feel that there's so much complexity in these big companies that makes hard to implement these new tools, and then make people more productive, like from a day to another.
One thing is for sure, AI is not going anywhere. It's only going to increase their capabilities. It's going to be more widespread. So now is the time for companies to start looking into how they can incorporate these tools, how their internal process will be affected by these tools, and of course start offering training, and then expecting, of course, then maybe in the near future their employees will be a lot more versed into AI.
Yeah, of course I'm advocating for the employees, but I feel that some companies, they have already the R&D department where they test a lot of new stuff, and maybe that's the right way of starting, with AI. For example, MVRDV that we talked in the previous episodes, they had this kind of R&D department. So there they were trying a lot of different tools, and then AI was one of the tools that they tried, and it worked so much, like for them, so they could adapt to the whole processes that the company were doing. So maybe that's the right way for the companies, if you don't have an R&D, maybe you should create one and then focus on how AI can enhance the productivity in many areas, and test different things.
Yeah, there's a lot of models out there of some innovative companies that are trying to use AI and disrupting their processes. We talked about at least 3 of them, like an agency, Klarna, the fintech, and also MV, the RV. And I think more will come. as companies will try to explore these new tools, hopefully without the expense of burning out their employees, right? But that's it for today. If you're interested in how AI is evolving and how you can introduce it into your life or your work, subscribe to the podcast in your favorite podcast service and follow us for more. If you have any questions for us, you can reach out to us at hello@humanaixp.com or connect with us on Instagram at hellohumanaixp. Thanks for listening. See you next week.